This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan. And in for Amy this morning, Kristen McQuarrie, she of the Chicago Tribune editorial board. So we're starting to build a consensus. You had Puxatawny Phil, now Woodstock Willie here in Illinois. Both see their shadows, meaning 6 more weeks of winter. In addition to that, I'm not supposed to say this, so it's only going to be the third time I say it. Amy Jacobson passed a kidney stone, so she's on the mend, but that also means 6 more weeks of winter.
They're colluding. It's Russian collusion. Are you ready for your...
Team Russia.
Team Russia.
Obviously.
Are you ready for your trivia question about the movie real quick? You can think
about Groundhog Day.
Yeah, Groundhog Day, the movie. Maybe Bret can weigh in on this as well.
All right.
How long was Phil trapped in Groundhog Day in the movie? For how long?
6 weeks.
No.
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I'm just teasing it out. I'll tell you later in the show.
Oh, wow. You pick up this radio tease bit very quickly. Yes. I'm impressed. All right, so on Release the Memo Day, in addition to Groundhog Day, in addition to January Jobs Numbers Day, the statements that are coming out are remarkable and from some unexpected sources. First, what I thought was a reasonable position to take. Bill McGurn, who was on Bret Baier's show, had this to say about the memo and about the FBI, the quality of the FBI's argument.
I think that the FBI's argument is ridiculous. For one thing, they've shifted the argument. They used to say it was sources and methods. Now they're saying basically it would be material embarrassing to us. This is the Colonel Jessup argument from A Few Good Men. The American people can't handle it. I think people need to see. We have 2 big questions over all this. Did Donald Trump collude with the Russians to steal the election in 2016? And did the FBI and DOJ put their fingers on the scale? Now remember, this is also Christopher Wray in his testimony for confirmation spoke about how he couldn't give Congress information because it was classified. This gets us backwards. You know, the FBI is accountable to we the people through the Congress, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's, on the merits, if you will. John Heilman at MSNBC. Now, I'm going to chalk up what he said to Mark Halperin withdrawal. He misses his buddy, okay? This is a remarkable statement for someone who's usually rather measured, and it seems to me it goes to the derangement that comes from all of this shift from Representative Adam.
Paul Ryan is now no longer on Team USA or on even Team Old Republican Party. He's on Team Nunes, which means he's on Team Trump, which means to some extent they're advancing in some sense the interests of Russia. This is this is what Russia wants here. And I continue to be baffled by Ryan's behavior, but we are now have a clear signal, that Ryan is utterly supine. And he's backed Nunes. He's saying, to the extent that Nunes is saying, we don't care about Russian meddling in the 2016 election. What we're going to do is investigate the FBI, which is what Nunes is saying. Yeah. Ryan has come out and endorsed that view. And I find that utterly stunning. Paul Ryan has behaved poorly over the course of the last year. But I did not think he would end up in this position. And he is there.
Paul Ryan is a Russian agent, part of Team Russia now. Paul Ryan. Because it's just as easy as that. You go from Team Nunes to Team Trump to Team Russia. It's just a 1, 2, 3 hopscotch.
It's a dotted line that goes nowhere. And it's actually, Speaker Ryan, all he has said is that the memo should be released, right? Did I miss something?
And he raised the legitimate questions based on what we know that has been widely reported and has resulted in, among other things, the resignation of the deputy director of the FBI. Good Lord. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Bret Baier, Fox News anchor of Special Report, weekdays, 5 p.m. Chicago time. Also, the author of the book, 3 Days in January, Dwight Eisenhower's Final Mission. Bret, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning. So what about, Heilman in particular, and just does that not speak to the unbounded hysteria surrounding this?
It really does. And the fact that those statements can be made not considering what we know. These texts between Peter Strzok and Page talking about an insurance policy that's talked about in Andrew McCabe's office, as they're all being a part of the special counsel investigation. They don't happen in a vacuum. It's not disconnected. The fact that the Wall Street Journal has a story that McCabe sat on the found emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop for 3 weeks before it came out that they were there, and then they moved forward with the investigation, many officials thinking he was going to try to sit on them through the election. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. So why the House Republicans can't ask questions about that and not have Paul Ryan take on Team Russia is quite something.
Do you think we had Congressman Peter Roskam on the show a couple of days ago, and there are some voices out there who have seen the memo or are familiar with it, who have kind of downplayed it, that there's this big crescendo, and it's actually going to turn out to be kind of a sputter, that it's alluding to different things, but it's not going to turn out to be this big explosive document. Can you tell us what you've heard along those lines?
Yeah, I think there's a danger in overhyping anything, and we've heard the same thing. There's concern in the White House about that. The memo itself, I think some key points from what I've been told are that you will be able to see an interview maybe with an official who will lay out what would have happened if there was a dossier, what wouldn't happen if there wasn't a dossier, as far as what was officially done. Mm-hmm. I think there are a number of names that surface in this memo that people will be familiar with, that it questions their motivations, and it questions the information that they bring to a FISA court to get surveillance. So all of those things are not smoking guns, but they are serious questions that lend themselves to more questions.
Right, and it seems to me, we had Jonah Goldberg on the show, who I know is regular on Fox as well yesterday, and he talked about, this does not undermine or necessarily, depending on what's in there, of course, but on its face, doesn't undermine or diminish the standing of Bob Mueller and his investigation. Okay, fair enough. But the Bob Mueller investigation and the Russian meddling, or efforts to meddle in the 2016 election, doesn't undermine the importance of getting to the question, did we have an administration or elements in the administration use the most powerful agencies in the federal government for political purposes against political opponents? Isn't that an important question to have a complete and thorough answer to?
Yes, it's entirely important. Now, Paul Ryan makes the distinction that we have to be careful that we are not taking down institutions. And I don't think oversight of them is taking them down. In fact,
right.
One could argue it's strengthening them. So I think that hyperbole on both sides has gone, as it often does in Washington, over the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
Switching gears to immigration, amid all of the memo fury yesterday, President Trump saying, I'm willing to walk on immigration and any deal if the Democrats don't even want to talk. And it seems to me, with the proposal that he's made that meets them more than halfway, that he restated in a State of the Union address, he's got the upper hand on them in terms of standing with the public at this point.
Yeah, I think the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell yesterday said after the last showdown, that education doesn't change much in the second kick of a mule. I love these statements, but basically Republicans feel, the administration feels like Democrats are really, really in a bad spot. They're getting pushed hard from the left, and they are trying to hold the line and may end up holding the bag again.
Do you think, so Senator Luis Gutierrez from Illinois, Representative, is actually encouraging them to walk, saying that The immigrant population does not want this sort of legal status if it comes at the expense of others who will suffer more as part of a bargain. I mean, do you
like to put that question to them?
Well, exactly. Do you get the sense that he's right, or is he just among the we have to block Trump from having any sort of a win? What do you actually think the immigrant community wants?
Well, I mean, I think they want a deal. If you look at the DACA folks who were protesting Nancy Pelosi recently, they want some kind of them to stand up and make a deal, and 1.8 million people is expanded from 800,000. I think that's what it is. I think this is all a negotiating ploy on Gutierrez's part. But, you're talking about a situation where a deadline is set, March 5th. They're going to have another continuing resolution next week, February 8th. But there has to be a solution, or the president's going to have to reissue an executive order that takes them another 6 months. And it's not a position to be in.
Right, but the Democrats are doing a nice job kind of keeping both teams in it. And you see this with the tax cuts kind of closing the generic ballot deficit that Republicans have with respect to House and Senate races. But on this issue, boy, for those Democrat senators in states like Indiana and West Virginia and South Dakota, if they don't get a deal done, if Joe Donnelly, for example, our neighbor to the east, is part of the Luis Gutierrez caucus, he is not going to be a senator after the 2018 election.
I agree. I mean, there are 10 senators from states where Donald Trump won 80% of the counties or more. And Donald Trump didn't win 80% of those counties by not addressing immigration, by not talking about the wall. He won because he campaigned on all of this. I think you're going to see some shifts and it's already happened because, as you mentioned, the tax law, but shifts on the issue of immigration if there's not a deal here.
He is Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, special report, weekdays, 5 p.m. Chicago time. The book, 3 Days in January, Dwight Eisenhower's Final Mission. Bret, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Have a good weekend.
You too. And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
You've made the switch, and it feels so good. You've switched to Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.